And we are live with the River West Radio with Dave Clark, Dave Geis, and myself, Doug Cornfield, for the Pulling Each Other Along show. Welcome everybody in Milwaukee. We're glad to be back. I'm going to pull in. Hey, Dave Geis, you're coming in first.
Hello.
And
how are you?
where's Dave Clark? We got Dave Clark.
Hey, right here, man.
There he is.
How you guys all doing today?
Good. How are you?
So give us what happened with Milwaukee baseball today, Mr. Geis. You be the.
Well, it was a great opening day. I think they had about 12,000 people, which is capacity right now, as much as they can have. They came from behind in the ninth, scored 3 runs with 2 outs. They tied it on Travis Shaw doubled, 2-out double. Going to the 10th, Haters shut the Twins down with 3 strikeouts and ended up winning it in the 10th. Won it 6-5.
Well, congratulations and getting opening day going, and congratulations to Milwaukee. My Phillies beat the Atlanta Braves today, so I've got to text my son. He's a huge Braves fan, and I was born in Philadelphia, so they beat them in extra innings. That's about all I know in baseball today, so that's all we can help you with Milwaukee. The rest of you just going to have to Google or check your Major League Baseball app or something like that. So, but we don't want to waste a lot of time. We've got some special guests on today, and actually we did a show 2 days ago honoring Dick Hoyt, who passed away, and many of you are going to know the Hoyt story, and if you don't, Dick Hoyt was kind of the Jackie Robinson, the guy that started it all, for pushing his son along in races. And it actually created a way for people with limitations and disabilities to participate in sports. And for those that are on Facebook, they can see some of the folks that were involved with us. Bob Babbitt with the Challenged Athletes, Dave McGilvray, he runs the Boston Marathon. David Sonklowski, he's been involved with pushing along and all the sports. And I will, hopefully our guests will be able to let us know what all that is. And then the 2 guests that we have here today, Kyle and Brent Pease, they were also a part of that show, and we're going to bring these 2 brothers on. They've got really an amazing story that was inspired by the Hoyts, I believe. And so welcome, guys. Welcome. Say hi to Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, how are you?
Yeah. All right.
Milwaukee. We are on the River West Radio, WXRW, and we have Brent and Kyle Pease with us today. And I know, Dave Clark, you have all sorts of questions for these two brothers. So why don't you lead us off today?
I do. And first of all, you stole one of my questions just before we came on the air, Doug. But which brother is older, Brent or Kyle?
I've got 2 years on Kyle, but he beats me in just about everything else.
So explain to the listeners, the people that are not watching us live, but the listeners and the people watching, just what it is that you 2 collaborate and you do, and how you accomplish your goals. And I'll direct that question first to Brent.
Okay. Yeah. So Kyle, my brother, has cerebral palsy with spastic quadriplegia. So all 4 limbs are affected. It's a condition. It's not a disease. We're both lifelong sports fans, and we focused in on, we're from Atlanta, Georgia, and we focused in on the Braves and the Falcons and the Hawks and all of our local sports teams. And, we would change rules and make up rules and just find ways for Kyle to be part of that experience when we were growing up. But that was kind of part of the problem for him, is that we always had to do things a little bit different. And so, as we got older and rediscovered the Hoyt story, and as I was going through a personal journey and the endurance sports community myself, eventually completing my first Ironman, that really kind of sparked in Kyle what he saw was, he saw his life, but he also saw a way that he could do what everybody else was doing. And so we started following in the Hoyt's footsteps and competing in endurance sports. And we started with our local 10K and built up to an Ironman. So we really like doing the triathlon. So I pull Kyle in a boat. So I tie a rope to my waist and pull him along in an inflatable kayak. And then we ride a big 3-wheel bike. And then I push him in a specially designed chair. There's, for those that are watching online, there's the boat. So it's and there's the chair. Yeah. So it's really exciting for us because Kyle has to go through the exact same distances and he experiences it in his own way and very similar to the way I do. You know, his body is conditioned to sit in a wheelchair for 16 to 18 hours a day. And then to go through the rigors of a 140.6 mile race, it beats him up something special. And I guess for better or worse, now we're kind of tied to this long course racing stuff that Kyle likes feeling the endorphins and what his body goes through.
Again, I alluded when we did the tribute show to Dick Hoyt on Tuesday. I kind of alluded to the fact that it seems like Dick and Rick were the Jackie Robinsons of the genre that you're talking about, being the barrier breakers, so to speak. So I kind of put you guys in the Hank Aaron class. You'll know who I'm talking about, being Braves fans. Hank came along after Jackie, and he was kind of the second wave that came through. So I look to you guys to like carry on a legacy of what Dick and Rick started. And so another question I've got, I'm going to direct this one to Kyle. Kyle, if you can, recall for everyone, what is, and I'm talking just about the marathon, not the triathlon or Ironman or anything. What's the best time you guys have ever recorded in a marathon?
We did a marathon in 3 hours and 3 minutes.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. That's simply amazing to finish that.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not good with my math, but you might have to help me out. But
He needs the Florida State grad to step in and get the numbers right. He ain't shortchanging me on this one. It was a 302. It was a
302. All right.
302. There you go. All right.
Not
we knew
quite
the brother
Dick.
you guys would come out.
Not quite Dick Hoyt. Not quite Dick Hoyt speed, but we were blazing for us. It was fun.
Just on the picture for those that can watch it on on Facebook, it looks like you're moving pretty good. And if you're doing 302, that's moving quite along for any marathon runner, let alone pushing someone like you're doing here in this particular picture.
And I also think too, Brent alluded to it a little bit earlier, Kyle. That's grueling. That's grueling to also have to be pushed and to be in that position for us. I commend you guys tremendously. Let's go back to Tuesday night. And this is the last question I'll throw. I'll let Dave and Doug take a couple questions. But if you could go back, I know Dick and Rick Hoyt inspired you guys to do what you do and become what you become. If you can, go back in your memory bank, and I'm going to throw this out to both of you, so you might have different recollections here. But give me a lasting memory from each of you, something that stuck with you from your time and association with Dick and Rick Hoyt. But whoever wants to take it first.
Well, I mean, I'll let Kyle share because I think we actually both have the same memory, and Kyle shared it the other night. And I mean, Kyle, would you say that that's probably the one that really stuck with us?
Absolutely. The two that I'm making, absolutely. I think for me, the phone call was very important too, because he was one of the first ones to call us to congratulate us on Kona. And it was a dream come true for Brent and I. It was something that we worked on for 8 years, and we got a lot of notes. But I just remember hearing his voice, and it was the Jackie Robinson of our sport. It was like a legend. I was talking to a Hall of Famer, and get to hear his voice, and get to he just wished us well, and it told us that how proud of us, how proud he was of us. So that would be something that would stick with me forever. Seeing my hero and hearing his voice, it is something I'll never forget.
And for Southerners, like us that say y'all, and hearing somebody with that thick Boston accent, that just something about it, it was part of the Hoyt legend, that he was this, blue collar, ran his first marathon, and the last 23 miles he ran in bloody socks because his feet were all cut, his feet were all blistered from that first few downhills there at Boston. And Kyle missed a lot of opportunities to meet him. I had met them several times over the course of us doing this. And, when we went to the Falmouth Road Race in 2019, which was the picture that you just flashed up there, the three of us together, Kyle had never met him before. And, we were all standing there talking, and it was just really special just to be there. And it was after we had finished Kona. And it was, it was like looking at Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin talking to each other. I mean, here's the only two guys that have walked on the moon. And, Rick is nonverbal, and he has ways that he's communicated with his father and his family, and still does to this day. But Dick started asking Kyle questions, and just asking him about Hawaii. And Kyle was verbalizing things that Dick hadn't heard, or that Dick was hearing somebody else talk about, the same thing that his son had achieved, that he had achieved with him. And Dick started to get, water in his eyes as he was listening to Kyle. And I had just so happened to be kind of standing away with my father and off to the side. And I said, it's like he's listening to Rick tell him what it's like to be there. And he's hearing it all over again. And that's the one that really stuck with me, because everybody that does what we do now all over the country, they all have a little glimmer about, could I do Hawaii? Because that is that thing that feels impossible. 40,000 people do the Boston Marathon every year, but you turn on NBC every November, and there's 2,500 of the fittest people on the planet all taking on this mammoth, this seemingly impossible task. And here's Kyle Pease and Rick Hoyt, the only two people to have completed it in that way. And it's pretty special and pretty incredible.
I would just add that, at the time that Brent, the story that got Brent shared, I really didn't know why he was crying. And it took me a day to realize why he was crying, because everything that I was telling Dick, he was thinking about Rick. And to Brent's story, there was a voice behind it. Yeah. Although me and Rick are totally different, and we felt different on race day, he got a glimpse into how I felt. And I'm sure that he was thinking about his son as well.
I'm sure he was. Well, let me, I have three brothers, and I actually ran into one today at the at our little bakery when I was actually preparing for this particular show this morning. And I'm the youngest of three. Are there more brothers, or is it just you two? Is there other family members?
So I have a twin brother, Evan, and he lives in New York now.
Like New York, New York?
New York.
Oh, so that's something new. So there was three of you, and we're all part of the athletic world. I mean, we played every sport growing up, and of course, I was the little brother trying to prove myself all the time. But was he a part of the sports world like you guys?
Oh, for sure. And actually, usually it was like me trying to help Kyle, and so we'd end up like ganging up on Evan. Um, and so then Evan would, try to throw the football at Kyle's face or throw it at me, and then we were all, then we were rolling on the ground, keep an eye out of, looking at our peripheral, making sure Kyle wasn't trying to run us over with his wheelchair.
It sounds like you have something in common with Dave Clark, Mr. Kyle. Dave would use his crutches in certain moments for his advantage when he was competing in the
fend off that pass rush.
So there you go. There you go. Whatever it would be. So, how about you, the other Dave Geist? What kind of questions you have for these two young gentlemen?
Yeah, just a couple questions here for either one of you. How many events? Kind of a dual question. How many events have you guys been in? And thinking of those events, which ones really stand out as probably your favorite one that you've participated in?
You know what? We've lost track. We were really good at keeping up with that for a long time, and then as we've got a foundation that helps other people like Kyle, and as that grew, we sometimes kind of forgot to worry about it. But I do have a box. I'd save everything. So I have a box of all of our bibs and race shirts, and at some point I'll sit down and go through them. Although I was going to say Kyle remembers all our PRs, but he shortchanged us by about 60 seconds earlier. So, the one that really stands out, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, Kona's obviously huge, but just thinking of some other ones. I mean, Todd, our friend Todd just mentioned the New York City Marathon. Yeah. That's a pretty special story. We were part of a group of the first 5 people to ever do the New York City Marathon. You talk about the Hoyts, blazing the trail and the path that they did. The New York Marathon and a lot of major U.S. road races all have this rule that you have to finish under your own power. And the rule was really set up so if mom or dad calls and says, I want to push my kid in a stroller, they show them that rule. Or if somebody in a wheelchair shows up, they say, that's fine, as long as you can self-propel across that line. But as more and more people like Kyle and the Hoyts, were coming in, New York didn't have a path to them. So Kyle and I showed up as part of this contingent of 5 people, a global contingent. There was a German family, South Korea, Australia, and a couple of families from the US. And it was like, we're here. And halfway through the race, even before that, at mile 8, we started hearing this sound. And we had gone up there by ourselves. We were on a tight budget, and the wheel starts wobbling, and we're in the middle of New York City, and we've never had an issue in a race. We've never had anything happen. And by mile 13, it was so bad, it felt like I was pushing Kyle in quicksand. So wow. I stopped and I looked at the wheel, and it had 3 broken spokes. Which those things are tensioned like a bicycle. So 1 broken spoke is bad. 3 was a catastrophe. And we took 1 more step, and that wheel crumbled under the weight of Kyle. And there he was laying on the ground with this mangled wheelchair. And we thought we could still finish. So I ripped him out of his chair and tried to carry him and didn't get very far. So, but we figured it out. We had 2 strangers that stopped and helped us carry this mangled wheelchair for 13 miles. And the better part of the story, though, as you were asking about brothers, and it took Kyle and I a long time to really share this, because up to that point, everything that we had done in this endurance community fell under the inspirational or amazing category. And we really got ugly towards each other in those last 13 miles, and it was hard. The ropes were, tearing into my shoulder. Kyle was, just so uncomfortable in this broken wheelchair. And these 2 poor strangers, they are like bawling their eyes out when we cross the finish line. And Kyle and I are like scowling at each other, like, you wait until we get in the cab, buddy. And we have to watch our language tonight. But what I will tell you is we got in the back of the cab and we started screaming at each other like only brothers can do. And we were pushing each other's buttons, and we got back to that hotel after screaming at each other in the cab for 15 minutes. And I looked at him and I was like, well, I got to put you to bed, buddy. So aren't you happy that you said all those things to me? I think I'll just leave you in your wheelchair and we'll see who's funny now. But that was part of what made that day so special. And we went back the following year, and that was what really brought the whole experience back for us, because we ran by all those spots where we fought with each other. And we realized, like, you're doing this really special thing. And it helped us moving forward. It really helped us appreciate all those other race experiences, whether it was the local neighborhood 5K or the Ironman in Hawaii. It didn't matter. We had to love each other and love those experiences together.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
So I was thinking, ask Kyle, what's the real true story?
That's it. I mean, yeah, I was really upset by our performance, and I'm very competitive, and I don't want to make any excuses, but we were on track for one of our PRs, and then the wheel happened, and yeah, it just was like, come on, man, the wheel is messed up. We gotta keep on going. But I did not appreciate at the time the sacrifices that Brent made in order for us to complete that race. I mean, he got in a NYPD police car, and the police took him to the nearest bike shop to see if we could get it fixed. And I mean, when you make sacrifices with for somebody that you love, when you go above and beyond to make a difference in their lives, that's what Brett does for me every day. And it, like Brett said, it took us a couple months before we could even share that story. We had to talk about it, and but that definitely kind of solidified why we do what we do.
Of course, that's great.
And that's led to you guys to start a foundation. And I just want to let everybody know this is the 104.1 River West Radio. We've got some incredible guests on telling their stories. Two brothers that have done some amazing things, but they have run so many races. We just found out they can't even remember how many races they've run together, including the Big Kahuna, the Ironman races, and even the one out in Hawaii. So we're just glad to have Brent and Kyle Pease with us tonight. Thank you, guys.
Doug, also, they you might want to let the listeners and people viewing this know that story is going to be in your upcoming book with Todd.
Yeah, both of these. This is one of the stories that's going to be in the Pulling Each Other Along show, and the book. It's on the show right now. So the Pulling Each Other Along book, and it's just another one of the. We're just, for the people that have been watching this, we have a tremendous team of folks that are working with us on this Pulling Each Other Along book, and these are just two more of the incredible people sharing their incredible stories. Somebody that's also a part of the book, Bonnie Mann. She put on our chat this morning. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a marathon, a fairly, well-known marathon now in Corning, New York, the Wineglass Marathon. Any chance we can get you guys here to the Wineglass Marathon? I just might happen to know the director.
Absolutely. One thing that me and Brett love to do, and we love to travel together. We love to stay in hotels, even though we fought in a hotel. We love to hang out. So yes, we will put that on our list. Bonnie, thank you for the recommendation. And
so it's the week before Boston this year. So Kyle and I think that might even answer another question I see there from the chat. But
yeah.
So we're doing Boston this year, although Kyle's probably going to start texting me to go, well, we can just do 2 marathons in 2 weeks. So,
there you go. Well, we know somebody that's doing 7 in 7 days.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you hear those stories, and I mean, Kyle's first Ironman, I still never forgot. And we're here on WXRW. Sorry, I just always wanted to do that whole call sign thing. But we got separated from Kyle's wheelchair in his van, and everybody was like, well, what do we do? And it was so late, and we just threw Kyle. We laid the seats down in this SUV, and we just put Kyle in the back. And before we had closed the hatch, his eyes were closed. He was passed out because he was so exhausted from racing all day. And so I don't know if we got 7 and 7 for us, but yeah, we'd love to be part of the Wine Glass Marathon sometime. Like Kyle said, I mean, traveling is this really it's this fun experience. Like Kyle didn't get to come on the team trips with me in high school. I swam and played football. And so, swimming, we'd go out of state or we'd go to the state swim meet and we'd have to stay in a hotel with the team. And Kyle didn't get to experience that. So even in our 30s, we roll into Boston or Corning, New York or Hawaii, and it feels like we're in the team hotel and we're sitting there laughing and cutting up with each other or screaming at each other. And it's same thing that teammates and brothers get to experience together.
So I know when Dave and I travel together, and we're cheapos, so we'll stay in the same room together in hotels. And Dave is down in Florida, and of course I'm in upstate New York, and we like the room temperature just a little bit differently. I don't know, maybe you guys are in Atlanta, so you guys like it the same temperature, but I have to wait until Dave's in bed and he takes off his braces, and then I go and I turn down the thermometer.
And dirty pool, Jack.
That's right. That's right. You got to do what you got to do sometimes, right? So, hey, before we lose the 104.1 River West Radio, I want you guys to share a little bit about the Kyle Pease Foundation and how that got started. We'll start with you, Kyle, since it's named after you, the Kyle Pease Foundation, and you guys are co-founders. Tell the audience a little bit about what the Kyle Pease Foundation does.
Yeah, so the Kyle Pease Foundation was started in 2011 with the mission to improve the lives of disabled individuals through sports, in particular endurance sports, so anywhere from a 5K to an Ironman. We have served over 150 families since the inception, and we have crossed over 400 finish lines together. So it's something that Brent and I are super proud of. And it started after our first triathlon at the St. Anthony's in Tampa, Florida. And I guess I had this aha moment where I wanted other people to experience what my parents and what Brent and Evan gave to me, the passion of sports. So I wanted to share that with all of the disabled community.
And Kyle, how does the organization run? Who's raising the money? All those good things. Who's in charge of all those things? And we've got about 2 minutes to wrap up.
Well, Kyle's our closer, so he comes in for the final fundraising ask. But Kyle serves as our chief inspiration officer, and I serve as the executive director. So we do a lot of motivational speaking and as a fundraising component, and a lot of just the work. And then we've got a couple other people that help organize all of the events, even drive the truck and pack the trucks and do all of the little behind the scenes stuff that most people don't notice, even pumping up tires and all that fun grunt work. So we've got an amazing team and a huge army of volunteers that really help us pull this stuff together. It's a pretty cool sight when you see 60 wheelchairs rolling up to the line, getting ready to run through the streets of Atlanta.
Wow.
Well, for those that are on the River West Radio, we're going to be wrapping up this portion of the show. Feel free to join us on Facebook or on YouTube for the Pulling Each Other Along show for our after show portion. This has been the 104.1 River West Radio on WXRW. We'll see you next week, Thursday at 6:30 Milwaukee time.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Milwaukee.
And we're back. And now you don't have to behave so much. Still behave, but not as much as we did before. So thank you guys
Doug,
for the live radio show. Now we're just on Facebook. We usually spend a few more minutes just wrapping up. And Dave, it sounds like you have some more questions. So shoot.
Well, this is the part where I want to make a shout out to a really good friend of mine, Mike Bowers, who Dave, you know well.
Yes,
he was the first general manager of the Indianapolis Clowns when we first took the club over in 1983, 84. Mike's going through some tough health problems right now, and so I wanted to shout out to him. He's pulled a lot of people along across the course of his career as a minister. We had a minister as our first general manager, Doug. And it's kind of ironic, isn't it? But anyway, he has pulled many people along in his life, and he's going to be a future guest on our show at some point. But just wanted to make sure that he knows we're thinking about him and wish him the best in his quest here to get better and get better. So also. Real quickly, I see that Bonnie Mann is checking in, Barb Rossetti, Russell Dye, Todd Sivan, everybody that pretty steady guests listening to our show every week. So appreciate that.
Tom jumped in as well. Tom and Laura typically listen to the whole show. Not sure how they endure us for that long, but thank you guys for listening for the whole thing. And so you guys, I want to throw it back to Brent and Kyle a little bit. I know you're baseball fans, but you said you played football and you swam. So you had to be the QB. You just looked like the Tom Brady type almost.
So I was the long snapper. I was not. Kyle was the water boy for my JV football team. And that's the joke, is that we just used to both be on the sidelines together, and I would guard the water and tackle anybody that came near it. So, but we did grow up. Our first love was baseball. We played baseball growing up. Oftentimes we had one of the pitchback nets, and oftentimes we would put umpire gear on Kyle and stick him behind that net. And then Evan, our other brother, and I would hurl fastballs at each other, and we had this amazing backyard, and so we would, see who could pelt homers over the fence. And but Kyle didn't really want to be the permanent umpire. And my mom, though, she actually helped bring what I guess originally was the Miracle League. There was not one in our neighborhood where we played baseball, so she brought that. And actually, one of my favorite stories was the very first game that they had at the park. Kyle got to be the leadoff hitter. The son of the woman who started it. And the rules were that everybody got to experience the game of baseball. So everybody was going to run the bases, and everybody was going to get to score and play, and just let all these kids that had never played before just experience it. And so Kyle hit a ground ball to shortstop, and so the shortstop, they helped him pick the ball up, and he threw it to first, and Kyle hadn't gotten there in time. But again, he was supposed to stay. And but he turned his wheelchair and he started wheeling over to the dugout. And the umpire yelled back at him to come back out. And Kyle kind of looked at him and shook his head and said, "That's not how you play baseball." And he left the field. So we joked that Kyle's the only kid to ever get thrown out of a wheelchair baseball game. So,
which leads us to something that happened this week that we have to share, guys.
Yeah.
So, Dave, it happened last week, I guess. Dave was telling me the story this week. Dave, you got to understand, Mr. Clark played a little bit of baseball. You guys, I think, know his story a little bit by now, but I don't know if you knew it beforehand. He actually coached the Braves back in 1999 or 2000. But this 99. Is him, 99. So this is him in the Phillies organization and with the Indianapolis Clowns in Little League. You see those pictures there. But let's just say Mr. Clark tells a few stories that I've gotten along the way of not having good luck with umpires. So let's just say he has a little bit of a temper. Would you say, Dave Glaze? Did you ever see that, Dave Geis? Back in your Colgate days?
Maybe, maybe a couple of times.
Yeah, maybe a couple of times. That's being very generous. So Dave, I think, would have rivaled Billy Martin,
Earl Weaver,
for being thrown out of games. So Dave, so
Bobby
what happened
Cox.
last week?
What's that?
What happened last week?
Well, I had a first. I had an absolute first occur to me last week. I had never been ejected from a little league game, and Saturday, my son's team was playing, and I'm an assistant coach on his team, and I just happened to get ejected from a little league game and I know, Doug and Dave, you're going to tell me I'm full of crap and I'm lying. I didn't do a thing.
Of course.
I did not do anything. There was a controversial call at the plate. The head coach went out to argue the call. I followed him, and I listened to the umpire's explanation of why he called a runner out at the plate. And he called him out. He said, because our runner missed the plate on his initial run in from third base. And so me being more or less a bench coach, I kind of quietly said, don't go back and touch a plate. So when he went back and touched the plate, the coach from the other team said something to the umpire. And the next thing I know, our guy's getting called out. So our head coach goes out and I go out. And the explanation was that in Little League, you have to either try to avoid or you have to slide to avoid a tag or not be tagged. However, I explained to the umpire there was no play at the plate. The ball was at the backstop. So there was no play at the plate. So how do you avoid the tag when there's no play?
There's no play, yeah.
So anyway, I backed off because obviously the umpire was not going to change his mind. So I went back to the dugout. Our head coach continued to argue a bit, and then he came back over to the third base coach's box. We're still batting. And we have a runner at second. So on the next pitch, the runner from second tried to steal third. Third baseman was positioned right in the baseline. So he went around him, and our head coach at that point looked at this umpire who was already steaming, and he said, that's interference. At which point the umpire said, I didn't see it. At which point our head coach said, you were looking right at it. At which point the umpire said, all right, clear all that stuff off the field. And then he pointed at me, and it brought back the memories from Germany, because he pointed at me and he goes, and you get off the field. And I went, me? He said, yes, you. And so I was ejected for doing nothing, but it was the first.
So what did
another chapter to the ejection?
So Dave,
and Dave, you mentioned Earl Weaver. I grew up watching him as a kid because he managed the Oriole AA farm team in Elmira, New York, which our dad took us to all the time. And he put on some excellent shows.
Oh, I know.
So along with Bobby Cox, who I had the opportunity to work with for a while. So.
So Dave, though, before I let you go off of the story, the umpire said some things that I think are interesting to you that day. You were telling me he was trying to find out if you knew anything about the game of baseball.
well, he came up after the game had ended, and he apologized. You know, he said, I'm sorry, I got carried away. I was hot the moment, spur. And I said, that's fine. I said, I understand totally. And at which point he then said, I'm not sure how much you know about baseball. And I said at that point, to be honest with you, I don't know a whole hell of a lot about the game. And he then tried to start telling me all the rudimentary elements of baseball. And I just went along with it.
Wow.
Dave, what do you do for the Braves?
What's that?
What did you do for the Braves?
I worked basically. I worked with a lot of the minor leaguers in spring training on the backfield. But I know we don't have time to tell the story, but I've got a really funny story. The only time they brought me up to the big leagues to coach a game at Wide World at Disney in Kissimmee, Florida.
Go ahead and tell it. You might as well tell it.
Yeah, we need to hear the story.
Well, I'm on the backfield, and they come up to me about 11 o'clock in the morning, and they said, "We're assigning you to the big league club today. When about 12 o'clock, we want you to get in the big league uniform. We want you to walk. There's a gate. Follow this sidewalk. It'll open a gate in the left field wall, and you'll be inside the stadium. Go to the bullpen." So I did what I was told. But when I opened the gate, I headed to my right. And I went to the bullpen in the right, down the left field line, because I entered through the left field gate. When I got over there's two guys sitting in the bullpen, and I held my hand out. I said, "Dave Clark." I said, "I've been assigned to work the bullpen today at the game." And they both sat there like this. One looked at the other one. The other one looked back at him. And I'm thinking, okay, this is a rookie. You know, they're giving me the razzing for being a rookie. I said, no, Dave Clark. I said, "I've been assigned to the bullpen today." Do the same thing. Look at each other. And I said the third time, no, I'm supposed to be here. Finally, the one guy points at the crest on his jersey. We were playing the Cleveland Indians.
Oh,
I was in the wrong bullpen. Talk about embarrassing. And he did this, and then he went. And I had to walk across the entire outfield, the other bullpen, in front of 8,000 fans, rednecked all the way up. That's not the end of the story.
That's great.
After the game, we're boarding our buses to go back to our hotel. I climb up the steps of the bus. I look around, and I go, "There's not anybody here. What?" I was on Cleveland's bus. And my wife that day said, "I think you really want to be an Indian, not a Brave."
yeah.
So that's my story.
So Kyle, at the very first, there's a nice tie-in here. So at the very first race that we ever did, Kyle was working at a local grocery store, and he had to wear a green vest and a tie. And we were doing this neighborhood 10K, and Kyle shows up to the first race in his dress slacks, a green vest, and a tie. And I look at him, I'm like, "Kyle, what are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I have to go to work after the race." I was like, "Yeah, but we're going to get sweaty and gross. And then you like, what are you doing?" And he's just dressed up, you know, with his tie and everything. And he's the only person there that day wearing his tie. But we had the best time, I think. We had just a blast, because it was the first thing that we had ever done together like that. And it was this unlocking of this world that we had not experienced, you know, because even the baseball story we just told, I had to sit in the bleachers while Kyle played, or when he came to, you know, my games, he sat in the bleachers while I played, and we didn't ever get to experience those things together. So even though he was in a vest and dress slacks and dress shoes, they still let him on the field that day, and they let us run. So we understand a little confusion here and there as well.
Yeah. So we have a couple of questions that we ask you gentlemen that we didn't get to during the live broadcast on the Milwaukee 104.1 River West Radio. And one of those is we like to find out from you guys, what's that one thing, one person, whatever it might be, and, you know, narrow it down. We know there could be about 50 of them for you guys, or 100 or 200 or whatever the number is. But we want to find out who and what pulled you along in your life. Go ahead, put you on the hot seat, Brent.
So I just pulled it up because I liked what Kyle and I wrote in the beginning of our book. And it said, "To Mom and Dad, the first coaches we ever had, to Evan, our everlasting teammate and brother, we love and thank you all endlessly." And it's always been our family that's pulled us along, because they set the standard from day one that Kyle was going to be included in everything we did. And Evan, our brother, all of us were always pulling each other along. And that has always stuck and been a huge part of my life.
Kyle, can you add to that?
Wow. Yeah, yeah, I did read right on. I think for me, faith and hope really helped me to visualize the finish line of whatever race we're doing. But you have to have a team in your corner, and I have the best team behind the scenes in our race day, and I wouldn't have it any other.
That's great. So on the lighter side, and somebody, Tom Demolakis, wants to make sure we find out what your favorite donuts are. We'll start with you since you're on the hot seat. What's your favorite donut?
I like so many. I like Glaze. Of course, it would go to Krispy Kreme. But we have a lot of great local donut shops around here.
Oh, come on, pick one.
I would say maple honey.
Maple honey?
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Wow.
I'm not sure. We have a maple bacon down at Bennett's in Fort Myers that's unbelievable.
That is.
So what about you, Mr. Brent Pease?
I've always been the jelly
There you
filled.
are. Man to my heart. Anything with jelly in it.
So the reason we asked that question is because Dave Clark has a great love for donuts.
So something about swimming, Dave, it makes you so hungry. I don't know what it is. If it's like being a land mammal and having your face down in the water for an hour, but when I finish swimming, I can put down a dozen donuts like that.
Well, if you ever get to Fort Myers, we got a place for you. But I'm sure
Yes,
you get
absolutely.
incredible place in Fort Myers. So I don't know if you saw this, Dave. Did you see this, Dave Clark?
I did. My son's head coach and my head coach, Eric Wold, has written, and he said, "I'm the head coach, Dave, and Dave took a bullet for me."
There you go.
Anytime, Eric, I'll take that bullet anytime.
There you go. Maybe proof that Dave was actually not at fault this time.
I knew you guys wouldn't believe me. I knew it.
Just maybe. So anyway, any more questions, Mr. Clark or Mr. Geis, for these two guys before we let them go? And
I think Dave had one more there, and we kind of cut them off.
I'm just wondering how do you guys train for these events? I mean, it's got to be just about as grueling as the events themselves.
It's really the best part of this, because that's when there's not as much pressure. But so like for an Ironman, I'm putting in 20 to 25 hours a week on average.
Wow.
And what, we always wanted Kyle to be part of this. And so 10, 12 weeks out from every race, he's out there with me. So we'll go out and we'll do, 6-7 hour bike rides together. We'll go on 2-hour runs. We'll hook the boat up and go to open water and jump in the water and start swimming. So we Kyle's putting in 10, 12 hours a week himself, but even he's out, skipping the bus and just wheeling his chair all the way through Atlanta, just anything to kind of get himself ready physically and mentally too, because usually what happens, the strain of carrying a human being wears on you mentally, and all of a sudden Kyle realizes he's got to have the mental fortitude to help push us or pull us along. Sure. And it matters. I mean, we think about that a lot, how much Kyle thinks about what it must be like to pull somebody and carry them that long. And I think about how hard it must be for him having to hear me over and over beg for a way out of the race.
So you had mentioned also that you guys have a book. And so is that found on SevenMediaRelations.com, or is there another place, Amazon? Or
Amazon, it's on our website. I have one right here. Of course, I was reading from it.
Beyond the Finish.
Yeah, Beyond the Finish. Todd helped us put this together, our good friend Todd Sivan. And website, Amazon, all the fun places, Target, Barnes & Noble. Very
good. Wherever. So for you people watching, share the word. For the people not watching live but get to watch this later, this is a great story of not just pushing and pulling each other along. This is a great story of brotherly love, family connection, what's better than that in this world? We certainly need more stories like the Brent and Kyle Pease and the Pease family stories. So appreciate you guys coming on the show today. You've been a joy. We're looking so forward to having you in this new book that we were putting together, the Pulling Each Other Along book. You guys are a great chapter in that book, and we're just grateful that you took the time to be with us today on this show. And I'm going to start playing a little bit of music, and we'll just say our goodbyes. And again, we appreciate you guys being on the show.
Thanks for being
Yes.
on here, Brent. Kyle, thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Yeah, this has been the
Okay.
Pulling Each Other Along show with Dave Geist, Dave Clark, Doug Cornfield. See you next Thursday. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.